Nikola Jokic played the best game of his playoff career last night in Game 5, in my opinion. He finished the night with 40 points, 7 rebounds, and 13 assists with 0 turnovers to go along with 2 steals and 1 block. He went 15 of 22 from the field, including 2 of 3 from 3, and went 8 of 9 from the free throw line. And the talk of NBA media today, the talk of NBA Twitter for sure, is going to be that he did all of this on the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, who's now a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year winner. And people are questioning if he really deserved that award, if this is the performance that he's giving up in a critical Game 5 matchup where the winner of Game 5 in a 2-2 series goes on to win the series, something like 80+% of the time, somewhere around there. And I'm here to say, what could Rudy have done? Genuinely go back, and if you really have doubts about Rudy's defensive skills, just watch each individual basket that Jokic scored and tell me, did Rudy Gobert play bad defense? Because I think you'll find on almost all of them, he played as great a defense as you could ask. Now, there were times where Rudy was getting put into the rim, just getting back down from above the elbow all the way to basically underneath the basket. You'd want him to be stronger there, but that's never been Rudy's game. Rudy is a generational rim protector, and that's why he is a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's, by the numbers, one of the best rim protectors we've ever seen in the NBA. But he stood no match at any level, because Jokic was giving it to him at all 3 levels. If you needed him to step out and play him in space and work from him on the perimeter or high mid-range, he's giving him that as well. He was knocking down threes in his face. When he was backing him down and was able to bully him, he's bullying him all the way to the rim and sometimes getting and ones or just easy layups in that situation. The few times where Rudy was able to, body him up a bit and not let him back him all the way to the rim, that's when Jokic was pulling out the footwork, ball fakes, up and unders. It was just an absolute clinic on pure scoring aggression and just dominance across all 3 levels. And if you're the Timberwolves, I don't know what more you can do. And this just is something that I've said if you've been listening to the podcast, and I'll link that in the description, Off the Glass podcast with me and Dane. Be sure to follow us and subscribe to the channel over there. What do you do with Jokic? If you leave him one-on-one, he's going to score. He's going to dominate whoever you have guarding him. If you bring another body into the picture, he's going to make the right read every single time. 13 assists and 0 turnovers in this one. And shout out to KCP, because he did take what would have been the last turnover, the first turnover, of the game for Jokic on what was that shot clock violation there at the end of the game. And he went over and took the ball out of Jokic's hands to make sure that he didn't get that turnover. That's a true teammate for sure. But there's nothing you can do. And I saw a tweet just now that I bookmarked because it almost embodies it too perfectly. It's from Dom2K. Shout out Dom. He said, "I'm really not over what I saw last night. You double Jokic, he passes. You don't double him, he scores. You double him, he still scores. You run him off the three-point line, he scores. You don't run him off the three-point line, he still scores. You perfectly contest his shot, he scores. You foul him, he knocks down the free throws. What is the solution?" And that's the same question that NBA front offices have to continue to ask themselves. Coaches have to continue to ask themselves, what can we do to stop Jokic? Because as of right now, there is no good answer. The Minnesota Timberwolves have tried a lot of different bodies on him. I think I mentioned on the podcast that me and Dane both feel the same way. This is the best. The Timberwolves are the best matchup for the Nuggets, just in terms of the personnel they have. They have 3 legitimately good 7-foot defenders who can, they can give them different looks on Jokic. They can rotate through their aggressiveness because they don't have to worry about if one gets in foul trouble, they have nobody else. They can kind of cycle through people on top of having great perimeter defenders in Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards and Mike Conley to try to, stranglehold the others and limit Jokic. It seemed like they had something going there in games 1 and 2, and then Jokic through games 3 through game 5 ratchet up his aggression and his intensity, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter what Rudy did. It didn't matter where Rudy was. It didn't matter if Cat was there, if Nas was there, if people were helping, if there was solo coverage, double coverage, they're doubling on the catch, they're doubling, on the move. It does not matter what they did to Nikola Jokic. They could not stop him from getting to his spots or making the right read and getting the Nuggets points. It was an absolute masterclass from Nikola Jokic, and I'm on the record already, if you listen to the podcast, of saying that I thought after game 2, this was the Timberwolves series. I picked the Nuggets in 7 going in, but after what I'd seen in games 1 and 2, I knew that we would get some response from the Nuggets. They're not, they have championship DNA. They've been a resilient team, but I thought for sure that the Timberwolves would be able to at least split, one of the 2 games at home for them in Minnesota, and they'd be able to close out the series shortly thereafter. But for the Nuggets to respond the way that they did in game 3 and really suck the air out of the building, go out, scrap and win game 4, and then on your home floor in game 5 for Jokic to have this type of performance is a best in the world type of performance. And he's been, in my opinion, the best player in the NBA for a few seasons now. And he continues to have moments that just remind you of how dominant he is, because we don't see this level of aggression from Jokic on a nightly basis. So it is truly a joy to watch, and it is something that I know Timberwolves fans will probably haunt them for years to come. This is the closest they've been to a Western Conference Finals in their young history. And I know that, with Anthony Edwards, the future is bright for them, but this game felt like that was their chance. They would have had to get back on the wagon here in game 5, and Jokic just refused to allow that. I do also want to give my flowers in not just this game last night, although he did play fantastic, but really in this entire series. Aaron Gordon, he's been the X factor for the Denver Nuggets in this series for me. And obviously Jokic and Jamal Murray are like, those are the big name guys, but X factor to me is either, somebody who's not always a key contributor, just something individually that they do that makes a huge swing in the series. And what it's been for Aaron Gordon specifically is his offensive presence. Obviously, we know him as a defender. He's a guy that was in contention for, all defensive teams this season. But, I just have in my notes here, what's impressed me the most is not even just his scoring, which has been great this series. He's been knocking down threes. I have another stat here about, him and Jokic on drives, which we know what they do. Their 2-man game, especially with Aaron Gordon coming out of the dunker spot. He has 49 points on just cuts alone in this playoffs. He's shooting 74% from the field, and he draws a foul about 12% of the time, resulting in almost 1.5 points per possession on Aaron Gordon cuts. It's just almost as unguardable as Nikola Jokic was last night in this series. But even more impressive than his scoring output in these last couple of games has been his playmaking. He has, in the last 2 games, let me just double check here. In game 5, he had 5 assists. And then let me go back to game 4 here. In game 4, he ended up with 6 assists. And in game 3, he had 5 assists. So 16 assists in the last 3 games for Aaron Gordon. It's been huge. You cannot undervalue his playmaking and his passing in this series. Jamal Murray was a guy who was getting hounded in the first 2 games. Michael Malone made the switch to have Aaron Gordon bring the ball up, which has made a huge impact. When Jokic has gone to the bench, they've been running their offense through Aaron Gordon, not just with him bringing the ball up the court or facing up, but in the post, being a guy that can use his gravity to try to, maneuver the defense and then kick out to an open shooter and get that assist, or he gets the Timberwolves into rotation, and then all of a sudden it's a swing, and it's a Michael Porter Jr. 3 or a Justin Holiday 3 or a Christian Brown 3 or Reggie Jackson 3. He just is so good at making the right read, and you can tell that the time that he spent with Jokic has really made a big impact on him and how his game has grown. And he just is so impressive with how much of an impact he's had on the series on the offensive side of the ball. He's been crucial because it's been a real up and down series for Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. And I don't think it's a stretch at all to say that Aaron Gordon has been the second best player for the Nuggets in the series. So got to make sure that I give him his flowers there, because he's been great. And more than anything, on top of the fact that, Jokic was as dominant as he was in this game, Jamal Murray saw his last 3 or 4 shots go through the rim. at the end of game 5, which, feels like that. If that carries over to game 6, it's just going to be lights out for Minnesota, even though they're going to be at home. You never want to see or let a guy see a couple get through when he's kind of, real hot or cold. I think LeBron and JJ Redick talked about that on their podcast. Some guys, you just cannot allow them to get a couple of good shots up at the rim and see a couple go through, because that can swing an entire series. And, that might play well into Denver's favor if Jamal Murray has a good game 6. But like we've seen here, even if he doesn't, it just might not matter. No Mike Conley in this one for Minnesota. So their offense definitely struggled. It was a much better game from Karl Anthony Towns, but Aaron Gordon, who I just was, talking about, great offensively. Defensively, they put him on Anthony Edwards, and he did a great job of using his physicality to try to cut off some of his drives, as well as defending him as a team. You've got Christian Brown and KCP with active hands. I think Anthony Edwards ended up with 4 turnovers in this one, and a lot of that just had to do with them swiping at the ball every time he looks to get downhill and get ahead of steam, making him uncomfortable, guarding him all the way through the end of the possession, especially through some of his downhill drives at the rim. So huge shout out to the Nuggets, man. I'll be the first one to say I picked the Nuggets in 7, and then after game 2, like I said, I didn't think it was possible for them to win this series. I thought that they had been more flustered and, showed us a side of frustration that we hadn't seen from them, but they're the defending champs for a reason. Jokic is the best player in the world, and he proved that again last night against the reigning defensive player of the year. And I don't know that there was anything anybody could do. He did it to AD for 2 series in a row now, back-to-back years. He's done it to Bam last year in the playoffs. He's done it to Draymond Green and the Warriors before. I don't know that there's anything you can do right now to stop Jokic when he's in this type of zone. So you have to give credit where credit is due. He's playing like the best player in the world because he is the best player in the world. If you like and enjoy this type of content, I'm going to be sure to keep trying to roll out these next day recaps. So, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I appreciate all support. I have the podcast linked in the description. If you are not following us or subscribed, be sure to do that. We appreciate all the support. Stay tuned. Like I said, trying to get more of this content out. I'm out. Peace.